Hello, how are you all today? It's Miss Mika with Cute County Beautiful. We are going to talk about a special kind of recycling today. We are going to talk about how to make compost. So compost is a form of recycling. So we have learned all about how to recycle aluminum, how to recycle plastic, how to recycle paper, and we know that we take those products and they get cut up into little pieces and then gets made into something new, like the cardboard may be turned into paperboard. Newspapers may be turned into toilet paper. Notebook paper can also be turned into toilet paper and paper towels. We know that plastic bottles can be sharded up and you can get those changed in. They can become like a reusable plastic bag. Or sometimes there's even plastic in the clothing that you wear if you wear the athletic type clothing. So recycling is when you take an object and you make something new out of it. Okay, totally brand new. It's not the same thing that it was. So that is what composting does. We're going to take something and it's going to become something totally new, and you're not going to believe the things that we're going to take. But before we get started with that, we're going to talk a little bit because composting is a special kind of recycling. It involves a chemical reaction. So if you've not learned about a chemical reaction yet, we're going to talk about that just real quick, okay? So there's two main types of reactions that all matter goes through. Matter can go through a physical reaction or a chemical reaction. So if I have a piece of paper and if I write on that piece of paper, did I change it? It is changed. It's changed how it looks, isn't it? If I took this piece of paper and I ripped it up into little pieces, it's still paper, but I changed the shape of it and I changed the size of it. That's a physical reaction. A physical reaction is when you change the physical appearance of something. Like I cut my hair. So it's still hair, but it's shorter than it was. So that is a physical reaction, just changing the way things look. A chemical reaction is totally different. A chemical reaction is when you make something totally brand new. So think about this with me. If you have made a cake before, you've taken flour and you've taken sugar and eggs and butter and oil or milk, and you've mixed all that stuff together, vanilla, cocoa, whatever you put into it, and you've mixed all that stuff together. And when you put it into the oven to bake it, all of that stuff mixed together and formed this brand new creation that we call cake. So once it's baked, you can't take the flour out anymore. You can't take the eggs out anymore. You can't take the milk out anymore. They became a new creation. So that's what happens with composting, okay? We're going to take these things and we're going to mix them together, and there's going to be some cooking applied to it. You don't have to cook, thank goodness. Nature does it for you. And then it's going to make something brand new, a brand new creation, all right? So we are going to talk just more about composting here. It is a natural biological process. That means it happens in nature and it is just part of life. If you go out in the woods and you're hiking around on a trail, or you're just out playing in the woods, the forest, or wherever, you see composting all around you. It happens all the time. If you dig down under those layers of leaves that's on the forest floor, you're going to find little bitty bits of leaves, and you're going to find some other biodegradable material down in the bottom, and all of those things are turning into this rich thing called compost. Okay, so a lot of people are confused about what compost is. Compost is not dirt. Compost is something that you put into your dirt to help boost it. It's like a fertilizer. It's a natural fertilizer. It's not this chemical stuff that people buy from co-op and Tractor Supply and places that's called like 10 10 10 and 10 20 10 and all that stuff. That stuff's chemical and it can burn your skin. Compost is totally natural. You can play in it if you want to, and it will not burn you. And it has all the things in it that chemical stuff has. You just made it all yourself through nature. So it is natural and it's biological. It just occurs all around us. So if it occurs all around us, then how are we going to compost? Well, we can make our own little compost pile. Okay, and we're going to allow that to break down over time. So what am I going to put in my compost pile? Well, you can put any kind of kitchen scrap that you want, as long as it's a fruit or a vegetable. Okay, we do not put dairy or eggs or meat products in there. But if you have, like I have a bag here of a few things from my house that are compostable. I didn't have as much because my husband takes my stuff and feeds it to our chickens, so I had to hide this stuff so I would have it. But I ate some strawberries this morning for breakfast, and so the tops of my strawberries are in there. I can put this in my compost pile. I made tea last night, so there's some tea bags that I can put in my compost bin. And I have some dryer lint because I can put that dryer lint in my compost bin too. So anything that is organic, biodegradable from nature, like fruits and vegetables, and of course your dryer lint is cotton, the tea bags come from plants. Any of that stuff you can put into a compost pile and begin making your own compost. Now there's a little bit of the science to it, just a little bit, okay? It's not just throw a whole bunch of stuff in. You have to have the right amounts of things, okay? So we're going to put in things that, like the strawberries have color to them. They were still, I guess, alive, you could say, when I ate them. They still had color to them. They hadn't died yet. They hadn't shriveled up and turned brown. So we actually call this stuff green stuff, and this green stuff is full of nitrogen. So when you go to Co-op and Tractor Supply, you are buying fertilizer that has nitrogen in it, only this is a natural nitrogen, okay? So banana peels, orange peels, apple peels, potato peels, your apple core, like if you had green beans for supper, the green beans that you didn't eat, you could put all of that stuff in there. If you mow your yard and rake your grass, you could use that grass. That's all green things that can change nitrogen. So I have to have that stuff, but I also have to have some brown stuff, okay? And when I say brown stuff, I'm not talking about bathroom stuff, okay? I'm talking about things that are dead, okay? So like grass when it's dead and weeds when they're dead, they turn brown. So those things are full of carbon. That's another thing that you find in that fertilizer at Co-op and Tractor Supply and stuff. It's got nitrogen and carbon in it. So this carbon is coming from natural things. So anything that's been dead for a while that's turned brown, if you had a house plant and you forgot to water it and it's died and it's turned brown, you could put that in your compost bin. The dryer lint that I have is brown stuff. That's your carbon right there that you can put in. So we put all of that stuff in a pile together. And you have to put a little bit of water in it, and it has to get air. So you know what my compost bin is at my house? My compost bin is a trash can that has holes bored out in it so that it can get air, it can get water when it rains, and I just throw in my kitchen scraps, my fruit and veggie scraps, and then I go every once in a while and put some leaves, and when I weed my flower beds and stuff like that, I throw all that stuff in my compost bin too. So compost is an amazing thing. Okay, when you put this brown stuff and this green stuff and the water and the air together, compost does something really cool. It starts to cook itself, and it starts in the middle, and it gets so hot in there, like it can reach temperatures of up to 1,000 degrees inside. And as it's cooking, all of that stuff in there is starting to break down. The word is decompose. It starts to break into smaller and smaller pieces. So that will start to cook itself, and all of that stuff's going to break down and make something that looks like fertilizer, but or looks like dirt, but it's actually a fertilizer, okay? So it's going to be kind of brown looking and crumbly looking like dirt is, but it's actually a fertilizer that you can put into the dirt, okay? So it cooks itself. As it does that, any kind of bacteria or germs that might have been on your fruits and veggies is going to die in that high of a temperature. So you don't have to worry about it being nasty or gross or anything like that. And you can just put all that stuff in a place. You don't even have to have a container if you don't want to. The only thing is that sometimes animals will get in it and dig around and make a mess. That's why I put mine in the container. But you can just let that happen, and 6 months later, you'll have this stuff called compost, this fertilizer that you can put with your flowers when you plant them, or put them in your garden when you plant your seeds and stuff, and it'll help to fertilize the soil. Or if you want to speed up the process, you can get out there and stir it with a stick or stir it with a rake and let it get air. Okay, so a lot of people are afraid of compost because they think compost stinks. But if you do it right, compost should not stink. If it stinks, it's an easy fix. You have a problem, but you can fix it. You might need to give it some water. Sometimes that will help the smell. Sometimes you may have too much green stuff that's trying to rot and decompose, And that can be stinky sometimes. Think about when you have a potato in your house and it gets rotten. Your whole house starts to stink, doesn't it? Or at least it does in my house. And you have to go and you have to dig through all your potatoes and find the one that's rotten. So sometimes rotting fruits and vegetables stink. So if that's the case, you have too much of this green stuff and you need to put in more brown stuff. You could put in leaves, even paper towels and dryer lint and stuff like that. You could put any of that stuff in. If it looks like your compost is not decomposing, you may have too much brown stuff and not enough green stuff. But compost should not stink. My compost bin is right outside my kitchen door, and the only time I ever smell it is when I put too much green stuff in it, because it gets plenty of water and it gets plenty of air. So sometimes I have to go put the dry stuff in it to kind of keep down the smell. But when compost is done right, compost does not stink, okay? And you can also, like mine's in a trash can, even though it's in a trash can and we have holes bored out in it, we have little friends that show up to help in our compost bins, okay? You can have worms and roly-polies and sow bugs and all those, well, roly-polies are sow bugs and pill bugs, but anyways, you get my point. There's little creatures that come and help, and that's their job. That's what they do. They eat material and they break it down and they decompose it. So those little guys will find their way to your compost bin and they'll help out in that process too. So if you just let your compost just sit around and do its own thing, do its own cooking, and you never mess with it and you never stir it around or anything like that, it'll take about 6 months for you to get compost. If you get in there and dig around, put you some worms in there and all that good stuff, you could have compost in as little as 2 months, okay? So that's pretty cool, isn't it? That you're taking this fruit and veggie scraps, you're taking this like dryer lint and leaves and all this stuff, and it's turning into something that you can actually use to put on your garden, and you don't have to use something that's chemical and man-made that's actually not good for us, and it's not good for the environment. It's not good to get into your groundwater. It's actually not even good for you to eat yourself, okay? It actually causes lots of problems in our bodies if we do that. So you're taking all of that chemical stuff and replacing it with something that was totally from nature, and it's not going to hurt you. So we're going to post some links with this of some people actually putting together a compost pile, and you can see exactly what goes in and maybe hear a little bit more about how the compost process works, okay? But just know that this is definitely a chemical reaction, because once that compost has been made, I won't be able to pull my strawberries back out. I won't be able to pull my dryer lint back out. I won't be able to pull the leaves back out because they have turned into something totally different. So we're going to do another video that's going to go a little bit more in depth about some of the things that's good to put in your compost and things that are not good to put in your compost, okay? So we will see you guys the next time. Hope you enjoy the additional videos, and we'll see you later. Bye.